In the shadowed halls of medieval Norman courts, a legal doctrine took root that would strangle the lives of women for 8 centuries. Coverture, the word itself means covering, emerged from feudal custom as a system of legal obliteration so complete that it rendered married women invisible in the eyes of the law. By marriage, according to Sir William Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England, the husband and wife are one person in law. That is, the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during her marriage, or at least is incorporated or consolidated into that of her husband, under whose wing, protection, and cover she performs everything. This was not metaphor. This was the binding legal reality that governed every aspect of a Victorian woman's existence from the moment she spoke her marriage vows. In effect, a woman surrendered her legal existence on marriage. She ceased to exist as a person capable of owning property, entering contracts, or even controlling her own body. Prior to marriage, a woman could freely execute a will, enter into contracts, sue or be sued in her own name, and sell or give away her real estate. When 19-year-old Caroline Norton married George Norton in 1827, she ceased to exist as a person under British law. Her property, her earnings, her children, even her physical body belonged entirely to her husband. She could not sign contracts, could not sue or be sued, could not own property, and had no legal recourse if her husband chose to beat her, rape her, or lock her away. The Norton marriage would become a notorious example of coverture's horrors. George Norton, a barrister and member of Parliament, regularly subjected Caroline to savage beatings. When she attempted to leave him in 1835, he seized their 3 young sons and refused to allow her any contact with them. Under coverture, the children legally belonged to him alone. Caroline's desperate letters to friends reveal the agony of maternal separation. "I am a prisoner here and my children are my prison wardens." She would not see her youngest son for 2 years. Women's property disappeared into their husbands' hands the moment they married. When wealthy heiress Frances Power Cobb inherited £1,000 from her father in 1857, her husband immediately claimed it as his own. Elizabeth Parson later wrote that she might as well have thrown her money into the sea, for her husband took possession of it as if she had never existed. When he committed her to a private asylum in 1858 to steal her inheritance, she had no legal recourse. A husband could confine his wife anywhere he chose. This legal extinction covered every part of a woman's life. She could not make a will, refuse treatment, or protect her privacy. As one observer noted, a married woman had no legal existence and was her husband's property. Behind the polished walls of Victorian homes, wife-beating was legal and often encouraged. The rule allowed a man to strike his wife with a stick no thicker than his thumb. Though ignored in practice, the idea endured. Dr. William Acton's 1857 textbook claimed that a husband had the right to enforce intercourse, calling it his natural right. Marital rape was accepted as sacred duty. Diaries of Lady Colin Campbell exposed this cruelty. Her husband infected her with disease yet continued to force himself upon her. When she begged for protection, he refused, calling it an insult to his manhood. Violence was systematic. Medical reports from 1878 showed women arriving with broken bones, burns, and stab wounds. Some were blinded or had their jaws shattered. In 1869, Hannah Mullins was beaten near to death by her husband. He received 14 days in prison while she was told to obey him better. Working women suffered worse. Factory records revealed wives forced to surrender wages to drunken husbands who later beat them for hunger at home. In Welsh mines, men stripped and whipped wives with leather belts for small faults. Doctors even advised women to submit to any act demanded by their husbands. Pregnancy became another form of control. Without contraception or consent, women lived in fear of childbirth. Death during birth was common, especially among the poor. Survivors found no safety, for their children legally belonged to the father. If a woman fled, she lost them forever. Fathers could sell children into labor or worse. Mothers were powerless. Records from Manchester showed children as young as 5 working 14 hours a day because their fathers sold their labor. A woman's body was never her own. Elizabeth Wolstenholme wrote that a married woman lived in constant violation, her body used without rest, her health destroyed by endless childbirth, many bearing 15 or more children without pause. The 1842 parliamentary report exposed the torment of women forced to crawl through coal tunnels while pregnant, hauling coal even during labor. Poverty ensured obedience. Victorian marriage created total economic dependence that trapped all but the richest women. Even those who worked had no rights to their wages. Every penny legally belonged to the husband. Ellen Woodhouse, a successful Birmingham dressmaker, built a thriving business by 1856, yet her husband took the profits for gambling and drink. When she tried to open her own bank account, the bank refused, declaring that married women could not own property. She wrote that she had built an empire only to watch a fool destroy it coin by coin. In textile mills, married women made up half the labor force but never saw their earnings. Mill owners paid husbands directly. Many men spent the money in taverns, then beat their wives for hunger at home. Inheritance and property laws deepened the trap. Mary Jane Turner inherited her father's bakery in 1862, but by marriage it became her husband's. Within 2 years he sold it and abandoned her penniless. Divorce offered no rescue. Caroline Norton's 1855 separation from her violent husband brought no financial support, though he was wealthy. She survived through her writing while he kept everything. The 1857 Matrimonial Causes Act kept women unequal. Men could divorce for adultery alone, but women had to prove adultery plus cruelty or incest. Even then, they received less than 1/5 of assets and no support. For the poor, divorce was beyond reach. Legal costs of £500 equaled 5 years of wages, trapping countless women in violent homes. Leaving meant losing all shelter, income, and children. Science reinforced this subjugation. The Victorian medical world declared women mentally unstable, their minds ruled by reproduction. Dr. Henry Maudsley claimed women were ovarian in nature, unfit for reason. Doctors labeled defiance as insanity. The Lancet printed cases of women confined for reading too much or refusing intercourse. Dr. Isaac Baker Brown performed thousands of clitoridectomies, claiming it cured women of madness and rebellion. When Rosina Bulwer-Lytton criticized her husband's novels, he had her locked in an asylum as insane. Though doctors found her sane, she remained imprisoned for weeks until public outrage freed her. She warned that any woman who angered her husband risked the same fate. Private asylums became prisons for unwanted wives, aided by corrupt doctors. Investigations revealed hundreds of sane women confined to seize their property. Treatments were cruel. Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell's rest cure forced women into isolation, forbidding reading or writing, feeding them until their bodies weakened. Charlotte Perkins Gilman endured it, writing that she came so near the edge of ruin she could see over. Victorian childbirth medicine often worsened women's pain. Skilled midwives once delivered safer births, yet physicians removed them, declaring childbirth must be medicalized. Dr. Charles Meigs, author of a major obstetric text, claimed that pain in labor was divinely ordained and that easing it would strip women of maternal virtue. Many doctors refused anesthetics, insisting agony was vital for moral purity and bonding. Medicine also justified domination in marriage. Dr. William Acton argued that healthy women lacked sexual desire and that wives who found pleasure were diseased. Courts used such claims to defend marital rape, labeling resisting wives as mentally unstable. Amid oppression, a few women fought back. Caroline Norton transformed her suffering into reform. After losing her children, she exposed the cruelty of paternal rights in her pamphlet The Separation of Mother and Child by the Law of Custody of Infants Considered. Her struggle led to the 1839 Custody of Infants Act, granting limited maternal rights. Others rejected convention entirely. American reformer Frances Wright refused marriage, living freely with her lover and children, vowing never to live as a slave. She paid with isolation but chose freedom over social approval. In London's East End, poor women formed secret shelters for abused wives, while wealthy women like Lady Constance Grosvenor used family trusts to protect their inheritance from reckless husbands. The bravest acts were total escapes. Women who fled endured poverty, exile, and the loss of their children, yet found freedom worth every cost. Caroline Norton wrote that though poor and scorned, she was no longer a slave. Their courage shattered the illusion of perfect Victorian marriage. Through newspapers and pamphlets, their voices sparked the first rebellion against coverture's authority. By the 1870s, reform had begun, slowly restoring fragments of dignity. Still, most wives never escaped. They lived and died as property, their suffering unseen behind elegant facades. Their silence reminds us that respectability can hide cruelty and that a moral society can perfect oppression while praising virtue.